Well, good morning, and today we're going to talk about a subject that I am very, very passionate about. Oh, and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Dr. Trevor Miller with Integrated Health of Indiana, and we are going to actually talk about why we should have food first. And this is a subject that I am very, very passionate about because it seems the more we do research and the more we look into things, food is the most common cause for our chronic diseases. It's not only the cause of the chronic disease, but it's also the way that we get out of the chronic disease. So a little bit later, we're actually going to do a Facebook Live today, and we're going to do some meal prep with our front desk person, Tina, and we're going to start prepping the foods for the week and just teach her how easy this is, because it seems to be that we've lost the ability to cook in America, and we depend on everybody else to do it for us. And actually, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. We could go down talking about how we depend on everybody else to do everything for us, essentially. And we're losing our independence. We're losing not only our independence, but we are becoming dependent on things that we're seeing holes in. We don't actually anymore. What about the toilet paper shortage? Now we're seeing gas shortages. We really need to take care of us, and we need to be the provider for others, and we need to help others get through this. So when I look at I've got my list of things to cover over here, start thinking about chronic illnesses and the things that we face as Americans that is going to break our healthcare system and going to break our nation. And I shouldn't say the healthcare system actually isn't broken. What's broken is this thing that we call healthcare that is actually insurance-based care. And this insurance-based care is not based on making you healthy. It's based on getting you out of pain and then serving the investors and making a profit. That's what that is designed to do. It does help us, and it's great for crisis care, but it has gone from position 5 to position 1. Insurance is more important than, it's mandatory. You have to have your health insurance, which is supposed to pay for your health care, but now it doesn't, because you have to satisfy your outrageous deductible, and then it dictates care, which it's not supposed to dictate care. But if insurance doesn't cover it, then I can't afford it. And why can't you afford it? Because you've lost your independence and your ability to take care of yourself. And so they have become so expensive. It's a house payment. It's at least a car payment. But I know my wife, Jessica, works for a hospital, and one entire paycheck of hers goes to pay for health insurance, not even health care. And so we're going to go through some of the things and why food should be first. So as I said, first, most chronic illnesses are linked to food, and they're linked to ultra-processed food. And I'm going to show you how this happens. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into our genetics, and we're going to look at how genetics are transgenerational. So they started to see this in the Ashkenazi Jews, and they started to see it in the Thrifty Gene, and they started to see that people who were in the concentration camps developed a Thrifty Gene. If you couldn't starve, then you definitely weren't going to make it, and you were going to die of starvation, which millions of them did. And that is absolutely horrible. But what we can learn from what happened to them is, or what we have learned is those grandmothers have passed that thrifty gene down through 2 generations, and they can actually, in genetics, link people who were from the camps or descendants of camps back to actual people in the camps. And this is through what is called the thrifty gene. And so the thrifty gene is, you've all heard of the starvation mode. The thrifty gene is starvation mode, for lack of a better analogy. So this gets turned on, and your body is real conservative with calories, and it wants to pack everything away and save it for a rainy day. Now, when back then, and back with food was not so abundant, and the term food I use very loosely because what we eat now is not food. And I'm going to kind of go through that here in just a moment. What we have now is these food-like substances that are very high in calories and very low in nutrition. And that's where we start to have problems, because that's linked to the microbiome. If you are not feeding your gut bugs the appropriate B vitamins and the magnesiums and the calciums and all of these components and phosphatidylcholine and all of this stuff, if your body isn't getting these things, you're not feeding these bugs, and this absolutely has an effect on you. As you come into this, say hi so I can give you a shout out. We appreciate you and your time. So one of the biggest things that our food system is linked to is diabetes. And I've covered this in previous podcasts. But in my lifetime, they say by 2035, if we do not get a handle on this, then diabetes alone will cost the gross domestic product. So you take the gross domestic product of Germany, America, England, Japan, and China, put them all together, and our cost in the United States to treat diabetes is going to be larger than all of those. If that doesn't scare you, then I don't know what will, because we will be broke. And that was one of the big scares with, if you remember a few years back, politically, one of the big scares was they wanted to take the American dollar, and it was no longer going to be the monetary standard. Well, if we allow diabetes to actually keep rolling the way it is, we will become that problem. That monetary standard is going to go away. The euro will be whatever, whoever comes up with the next most stable currency. But that's just with diabetes. What other things are linked to food? Well, for you women, PCOS. PCOS is absolutely linked to our nutrition and to our food. Lupus, inflammatory bowel disease, skin rashes, psoriasis, diabetes or diarrhea, constipation, anxiety, Crohn's, all of these things have to do with our food. And that's why we have to make real food first, because it seems to be that if you're eating real food, you can take a lot of the genetics out of it. And let me show you something that is pretty impressive to me. Let me switch my programs here, and I will bring up something. What you are looking at, these are my genetics. So we see right at the top, everybody's heard of methylation and MTHFR, and how, wasn't but a couple of years ago, everything was linked to methylation. Oh, your methylation's off, so you're not detoxing, and oh, you're not going through genetic repair. And what you see there is my MTHFR status is in the orange. just one step away from red, which means I have a lot of SNPs. You cannot support this process. This process right there cannot be supported by the standard American diet. It cannot. You can't get the methylation groups. You can't get the vitamins you need. Activated folate's not in there. You got to remember, the M is methyl, and we have methylation. The M stands for that methyl group. In processed foods contain folic acid. This is a problem. Folic acid is not an active form. It's not something that we can really use efficiently, because folic acid has to go through a couple of steps in the body to be actually activated into methylfolate. And so the only way that you really get this in a good form is in sprouts and greens. So you have to have sprouts and greens to actually help or supplement, or actually not even supplement, to activate the methylation process. And so if you don't have those things in there, your body has to do a whole lot of dancing to get this done. And then you can supplement with methylfolate if you buy really nice vitamins, really good vitamins. But check this out. I have a problem in nutrient metabolism. So that means that when I go to break food down, and I'm not uncommon. As a matter of fact, I'm about as average comes when it comes to a pyramid like this. When we look at a genetic profile, I'm pretty much the norm. I see this all the time. And so when you don't metabolize the nutrients, when you're taking that supplement in the supplement form and it hits the stomach, is your stomach acid too hot? Is your stomach acid too cold? Is it in the right form? There's all kinds of questions, but then the actual breaking it down doesn't happen. So I love Metagenics because they actually have a lot of really good vitamins, but I've also started to use a company called Quicksilver Scientific. And you can go there and you can get an account with them. If you go through a practitioner, you get a discount. And so either way you go there, it's okay. But Quicksilver Scientific uses a lot of liposomal forms. So this is in a form that goes directly into the cell. And so this is how I get around this nutrient metabolism. And then, it always helps to have the knowledge to know what you need to buy, because they have a lot of stuff and it's not cheap. So as we look at how this works, you really have to get in there, and you don't have to know this stuff. I mean, you do not have to know your DNA. And that's the great thing about food. If you're eating real food, then a lot of this stuff happens automatically. So in that process, you always have to make sure that you are getting your food and you're digesting it. If you're getting your food in and you're digesting it, then what you're going to find out is a lot of your problems go away. But if you're not digesting it, that's the first fix. That's the first area you have to go in and you have to take care of. But interestingly enough, when we look at my genetics, you actually can't start here. You have to start down here. And you have to start to look at these things and starting to fix those. Glutamate. Why is glutamate important? Glutamate is what helps heal the gut. And I, as in most people, have an issue with glutamate. But if you have a proper microbiome, the little guy called Akkermansia does this for you. And so the thing that has to happen is you have to set up your garden so that he's in there, and then he does this for you, and that helps heal the gut. And then things like the oxalates and the histamines and things like that don't happen. So when we look at food first, we have to look at this stuff and add, hey, hon, I'm going to add you to the stream. Let's go say hi to everybody. She has been at her dentist because oral care, just like
most important to me.
Oral care is very important because that's where a lot of infections can come in. But guess what? If you're eating real food and you're crunching apples and you're eating carrots and you're eating fiber, that cleans your teeth. You know, they don't have people, when they go into the archaeological digs, people didn't die from the things we die from. They didn't die from chronic diarrhea, and they didn't die, and they had straight teeth and they had good teeth. And why did they have that? Because they ate the essential fats and they got the fat soluble vitamins. So there is a lot there that we're missing now because we've gone to this ultra processed diet. So once again, going back to, I missed that. What'd you say?
Well, I said I want to tell you something too, because so we've been eating for our biome, and my teeth always bleed, but they just always do. But they didn't today. They noticed.
Well, and on that note, I've been eating for my biome. I've been increasing my fiber. And yes, Tuesday's teeth cleaning was the easiest teeth cleaning I've ever had. They did pull out the iron hook, and usually they scrape each and every individual tooth. What was very interesting is my molars, where is what you grind on in the back, they didn't have to scrape those. As a matter of fact, she ran that over there and they were smooth. They did scrape the incisors a little bit, which I was very happy about because I hate that.
I thought it was fascinating when we did our biome. They said something about our teeth, but I'm like, no, my teeth are awesome, and they always have been. But now we just eat. Well, we've been doing our like actually eating for our biome, taking supplements and things. So I just wanted to tell you that it works. So y'all should get your biome checked.
Absolutely. And so back to the DNA, but as we take care of these things, and so I'm going to show you another page here, maybe. There we are. Let's pull that up. Let's close that. When we see these food gut histamine and oxalates, the thing that people don't realize is these two genetics right here, the HLA and the KIAAs, those two make you sensitive to the gliadin family. And the gliadin family is not just one thing. It's not just gluten. And so when you're eating an entire diet and you're having all of the foods and you eat the fiber and you have the good microbiome, and to have a good microbiome, you have to be eating fiber. You have to have this in there. guess what? They take care of a lot of the histamine and the oxalates. And I'm going to defer to Jessica here for a second. How many supplements did I have you on 2 years ago to help you with your histamine and your oxalates? You remember that handful of pills?
Probably. Oh yeah, it was at least 8 or 10, maybe more. I was up to like 25 pills, 27 or something crazy. Choking on them.
And that's not sustainable. I mean, if you go through and treat, if I was to go through as a doctor and treat every one of these SNPs, and trust me, they have a vitamin, they have something that will treat every one of these things. If I was to do that, the pocketbook would be very, very, very fat. But that's not the way to do this. There's a time in the beginning for, like Jessica, to settle things down. We do some things, and with my functional medicine patients, as we're trying to rehab the gut and we're doing that, that's great. But to sit here and say, hey, you're going to live on these 25 pills all the time, that's not fair to you. And that's actually a lie. Hopefully you don't have to. We want to get into these things. We want to heal your gut, and we want to bring those gut buddies back. We want to make sure your digestion is working appropriately, and we want to get rid of any dysbiosis that you have, because these are the things that allow the bugs that take care of the histamines and take care of the oxalates. Those things will come back into your system, and as they come back into your system, then you can take care of that naturally. But you're not going to be eating processed food. If you eat processed food, you're just going to go right back to this. So here's a question. If I try to treat all of these different things, I actually printed out my SNP report. My SNP report was 299 pages. And if I go print out the supplement report that goes with that, I don't even remember how many supplements there were, but there were a lot. And it would be probably close to $1,500 a month if I remember, kind of ballparking it. $1,500 a month to actually take what was recommended. And this isn't fixing the problem. This is just allowing your body to work around the problem. How do you fix the problem? That's when we go back to food. Food is absolutely the cure for these things. And it's the foundation from which you have to build upon. So as we look at that and we start to talk about the food, and once we have that foundation in place, and because of the damage that Jessica has done to her gut over the time, and think about that. I'm 50. I won't say her age. She's younger than I am. She can say her age if she wants to. But
I am happy to be 47, almost 48.
Next month. With that being said, think about when we grew up. For those of you that are our age or a little older, for those of you that are younger, the whole rage used to be low fat and eat the wheat thins and eat the snack foods and eat the diet foods. And we absolutely destroyed our guts. And so now we have to teach the younger generation, which my son cooks. Actually, both of my sons cook. So Casey is quite the cook. Aiden is quite the cook. The girls are all getting into the kitchen and they're starting to cook. And that's what we have to teach them. We have to teach them that food is first. We had a patient just recently who was telling us that it's too expensive to eat organic and was making every excuse under the sun as to why they shouldn't or can't eat organically. Then they went to their doctor, and their doctor gave them their meds. And when they went to go buy their meds started to be $400 a month. So you're going to pay. It's absolute
strawberry.
Oh God, can you $400 a month? How many times we could go eat out once a week at the nicest restaurant we've ever eaten at every week for that much money? So you're going to pay. If you're not eating real food and you're not taking care of your body and you're not rehabbing your body and you're not, I'm going to say it, you're going to end up seeing a functional medicine doctor. Whether you see me or somebody else, go to the ifm.org, look up somebody, rehab your gut so you're not paying $400 a month for a pill that only you can take, and it doesn't help your family. It doesn't help anybody else. And yes, it has me livid. I am very passionate about this because we have been fed a bunch of crap. And television promotes this. Evidently, I said something that was controversial. I may get banned on YouTube again, but it has to be said.
Well, just invest in yourself and not the pharmaceutical company.
Yes. And this comes from a doctor and a nurse. So we're looking at amazingly enough, we had another new patient this week and another functional medicine new patient this week. And when we were speaking to her and her husband, they are older. I don't want to give away anything. I don't want to break HIPAA, but they're older. And in my mind, they should know that they should remember eating and cooking all the time. And the question from the husband was does benign prostatic hypertrophy, is that related to food? And I was like, well, absolutely, because if you're not getting in proper cholesterol, you're not going to make your hormones. And as you don't make your hormones, your prostate's going to work overtime. And as your prostate works overtime, it enlarges. It's like a muscle. Anything that you overwork is going to start to swell, and it's going to start to have problems. Not to mention that just as we go along, things don't happen as well. That's a very intriguing area. That's where we're looking at. I really like the liposomal stuff for that because they're showing that the liposomes and using phosphatidylcholine and P5P and these things increase receptor cell density. So it's knowing when to use that with people. So food for thought. And this is something. So not only is food important, and we've kind of gone over why food is important. Oh, let's go back to here real quick. Nutrient metabolism. So when I'm taking vitamins, if I don't have the gut bugs and I just rely on my own genetics to do this stuff, I have SNPs all over the board, and I'm not going to absorb these things. So that's when you're making expensive urine. And I actually did a lecture for Bartholomew County Library on vitamins. And so if you're buying vitamins from the big chains, the big box stores, I can almost guarantee you that they're crap. And I had another doctor ask me to take a look at these vitamins because he was trying to help one of his patients. And the patient actually brought it to me and said, hey, doctor, thus and such, wants you to look at these and how are they? And I started looking at them and I'm like, man, these have really good omega-3s. Now, they didn't tell me if they were in the triglyceride form or what form they were in, but here they were. And the dose on these things are starting to get into physiological doses. And I was like, rock and roll, people are getting it. And so the ingredients list looked fabulous. And so then I looked down at the other ingredients, titanium dioxide. Okay, why do you want to take basically fish oil, omega-3s, fish oil, krill oil, looking at your bacteria, looking at the blue-green algae stuff? Why in the world would you ever take those things and add titanium dioxide to them? Why are you going to paint this white? And then they added caramel color. So this tells me that they've oxidized the pill while doing this. So most likely it's black, and they have to dilute it back with the caramel color so it looks like the form that you see in the good vitamins. And then they paint it white. And so I was just like, yeah, this is a known carcinogen. This, why they're adding colors. Colors are neurotoxins. Don't do it. I was like, it's just junk. So then they started to look at something else, and I'm rock and roll. That was great. But that's, all of this is, you can take these in supplemental form, but I mean, where can you get your amino acids? Well, you can get those from liver. You can get those from meat. You can get those from, you can even get amino acids from beans. And all of those things are multimodal. So you have food that can replace your little pill, and it's healthy for you. Now, we've done a really fine job in America of making food. I'm not going to say organic food. I'm going to say food toxic. Did you know I just received a thing from Dr. Hyman? I'm in his newsletter, and he was talking about Cheerios, which is supposed to be a heart-healthy food. Do you know that every bowl of Cheerios has more glyphosate in it than vitamin B12, which we add back to it? So we have sprayed so much glyphosate, which is a known antibiotic, known cancer-causing agent. Just go look up the lawsuits against Monsanto. All of this is there, and we're eating it as Americans. And pretty much only as Americans, because you go anywhere else, they don't use the stuff, or they don't use it as much. And in several countries, it's banned. Now, where we send our food to, yep, they're getting it too. But look at all of those things. And I would have I'm actually kind of, now that I've said it, I'm actually kind of craving some liver, and I would love to do some liver and onions. But that's just me. I'm old school. That's what mom and dad made, and grandma and grandpa, so I'm used to it. So once we get past this nutrient metabolism, if you eat things, so some people have gotten to the point that they're so ill that they can't eat spinach, and they can't eat these things raw anymore because of the oxalates in them. And so you have to prepare them. And that's where that comes in. You can prepare them by sauteing them. You can pressure cook them. Those are the things that you can do. Now, let's go back to some really interesting stuff, I think. Ancient leftovers show the real paleo diet was a veggie feast. And this is absolutely fascinating to me. That's from the newscientist.com. And they found, an archaeologist found a dig site. They found some people, and they could start to see what was in their diet. And when we see what was in their diet later on in the thing, ancient humans had broad tastes. Now think about this. The typical American, 60% of the calories come from 3 foods. Nurse Jessica, do you know what those three foods are?
Um,
Putting her on the
what do you
spot. Three food categories. Three food categories. What are the three monocrop things in America? Soy,
like corn, wheat,
wheat, and corn. 60% of our calories come from there. So this is the standard American diet right here. Soy, wheat, and corn. Sad. Or you can say horrible American diet, however you want to say that. But look right up here in this right here. Ancient humans collected no fewer than 55 different kinds of plants. They harvested their nuts, fruits, and seeds and underground stems, or eating them as vegetables. 55. We predominantly eat 3. So that's how bad it is.
Well, not including that, then they were eating, if they were eating animals, which was meat, then those animals were also foraging and eating all kinds of wonderful things, whereas ours just eat corn.
Yes. And their animals had higher omega-3s than ours did. And so now I'm going to pull up this. So this Dr. Kiltz, his website, that's what I'm on. And look at what he's talking about. I mean, if you look at his headlines, fertility, healing art, preserve, hope, yoga, for fertile. He's talking about, he deals with mainly hormones from what I have seen. He's going to talk about the standard American diet and what it is and where do we go next. And I'm not going to lie. I look at that Big Mac on there and I think, oh man, now the corn dog thing doesn't even remotely look yummy to me. I know Jessica would have a problem with getting away from the nacho chips there. But this is a standard American diet. And what you're seeing in this is you're seeing processed wheat. You're seeing oxidized fries that are going to be fried in oils that are going to be PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids. And when you fry in that stuff, it becomes a reactive oxygen species that stays resident in your body for 90 days. And so if you eat this stuff, it stays resident in your body for 90 days and you cannot make proper hormones. That goes back to your PCOS. So if you have fertility problems, and this is why he talks about fertility, if you have fertility problems, that's probably the reason why. But you're not going to hear that. So the standard American diet is a term used to describe a macronutrient composition of the food Americans eat. It is based on a consensus of mainstream nutrition experts drawing on data from the National Health and Nutritional Examine Survey, so NHANES. And NHANES is one of the longest running studies ever. And what NHANES says is, according to, and this is 2017 and 18, the average American adult eats 2,100 calories a day, 16% from protein. That's your muscles. And among other things, that's an oversimplification. 47% from carbohydrates. Now, this is very interesting. Of the 3 macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbs, what's the only macronutrient that you don't have to live? Like it's not essential for life. Carbohydrates. 47% come from carbohydrates. 36% from fat. And those fats in the standard American diet are oxidized fats, so they are useless to the body. And then 22% of all calories come from added sugars. Added sugars. So we're not talking about fructooligosaccharides, galactooligosaccharides. We're not talking about these things. We're talking about stuff that has been run through a processor, stripped of anything that resembles nutrition, and just left down to the sweet component, which, guess what, becomes highly absorbable and then jacks up the insulin. When you jack up insulin, what do you get? You get diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, inflammation.
Yeah. Number one cause of inflammation. And the
Which is
number
why
one.
I'm hurting all the time.
Yep. Yeah. If you have fibromyalgia, you have a nutrition problem. So as we look at this stuff and we start to break down the energy, the calories, and where they come from, and they look at all, and go to Dr. Kiltz and check out this graph, and it breaks it down. The typical 50 to 59-year-old, which is where I lie, eats around 2,500 calories, 2,554, and 15% of that comes from protein, not me. 46% comes from carbohydrates, not me, and 35% from fat, probably me. And then look at those. They do a very nice job of breaking down the fats into saturated, mono, and poly. And so when you look at that, the polyunsaturated fat is 8, the monounsaturated is 12, and the saturated fat is 11. So your monounsaturated fat seems to be the highest. I would actually question that, but if it is what it is, okay. So let's go down now. According to 2016 British Medical Journals, Americans get 58% of all calories from ultra-processed food. Hun, what's wrong with an ultra-processed food?
It's not real. It's not even food.
Uh-huh.
There's no nutrients in it. They've added them all back if there's any at all.
Yahtzee. That's the key right there. An ultra-processed food is stripped of everything and it's left down to just a paste. And all ultra-processed foods have some form of a binder, which is usually gluten or some sort of gluten base that causes a problem. Now, I can get away with eating Twizzlers, and that's a gluten-free product, but I'm going to have other issues because it's going to fire up my insulin. But look at these things. If you look at the food groups, unprocessed or minimally processed foods, 29.6% of daily intake. So only a third. And then you can start to add up, meat, poultry, yogurt, grains, roots, tubers, eggs, pasta. I'm really surprised the pasta is so low at 1.4%, but that's what they say. But that's an ultra-processed food typically, if you buy it in a box at one of the big box stores. But where do we get most of our fiber? We get most of our fiber from legumes, vegetables, and fruits. And look at how low these numbers are. Legumes, 0.8%. Vegetables, 0.7%. Other unprocessed or minimally processed foods, 1.8%. We have got to reverse that, people. We have absolutely got to reverse that. Animal fats, 0.5%. Processed foods, 1%. So our processed foods outweigh our intake of meat, fruit, vegetables, and that's not good. Processed foods have things processed out of them. Now, look at this. Here's the one that should scare you the most. Ultra-processed foods. We get 1,209 calories from ultra-processed foods. So this is a problem because there's no nutrition in that. So almost 60% of our food comes from ultra-processed foods. There's no nutrition. So how does this relate to anxiety? Well, if you're eating for your gut bugs, then they stay calm because they have the fiber that they love to munch on. But if you're not eating for them, what happens when you start to starve yourself? You get anxious. And I have patients come in all the time that say, I can't fast for 12 hours. I can't fast for 16 hours. I have to eat every 3 hours. And that's because they just don't have a good metabolically balanced system. If we have ultra-processed food, all of the fiber is pulled out of the ultra-processed foods. And as we do that, our gut buddies at this point in time start to starve. And so they start to give off things that cause they start to give off metabolites that are stress metabolites that tell our enteric nervous system, which is the link between the gut and the brain, and we start to stress it. And so as we start to stress that, we have a much larger problem because our body now says, you go slide in on that side, babe. Our bodies start to stress, and our gut bugs tell us to eat, and they want us to eat. And when they want us to eat, what do they want us to eat? They want us to eat crap because they want energy. They want food. And the problem is when we eat the crap, they still don't get fed. So they're still pissed off. So they still tell your body, you need to eat. But look at that. Ultra-processed foods, 57.9%. That's the standard American diet right now.
We would starve to death.
Total junk. And then when we go through here, salty snacks, I mean, cakes, cookies, and pies, really not real food. And you're going to get a bunch of junk there. How does that even rank at 5.7%? I believe that ranked higher than animal fats. And that just doesn't seem right because that should be baked with butter and that should be baked with these other things, and it's not. So this is the standard American diet. Soft drinks, there's absolutely no redeeming qualities in soft drinks. If you just look at the carbonation, your body will take the carbonation and make it carbolic acid, and then your body has to pull phosphorus, magnesium, all of its calcium, all of its components to actually make this not carbolic acid, to turn it into a base so it doesn't hurt the body. And so now you're in your buffering capacity has now gone down. And so you're susceptible to things that make your system more acidic just because you drank one soda. And that's only 8 ounces.
Most people drink at least 6 or 8 a day.
Yeah. So 1 8-ounce soda blows your buffering capacity for the entire day. And what happens? Gluten causes you to be acidic. Sugar causes you to be acidic. Fruit juice causes you to be acidic. So all of these things cause you to be acidic, and you have no way to buffer this now other than to rob your own bones of their minerals. And so what does that look like? That is osteoporosis. That is arthritis. That is all of these chronic degenerative diseases.
That's a hip fracture waiting to happen.
Yep.
And most people die within 12 months of a hip fracture.
Reconstituted meat or fish products. That just sounds horrible. That means they blended this somehow, made it a paste, and then put it back together.
Ew. I bet those are fish sticks.
Yeah, and chicken nuggets.
Don't eat that.
So, and then we had ultra-processed foods up here, ultra-processed foods. Then we come down here, Other ultra processed foods are another 3.8%.
And what the other is.
I have no idea, but that if you, I would just lump the two together and
Chicken
say
feet
over
and
60%. And this is so bad. And I'm like going, nobody's going to listen to this video.
Actually, if we had to live on this stuff, we would die.
Yeah, we do die. Look at.
No, I mean, but we would starve to death.
Okay,
We would starve to death.
we are that age group that is between the 45 and 50 age group, and our friends are dying. Our friends are having heart attacks.
Mine are all gone. I'm the last.
So at this point in time, we're seeing our 50-year-olds die, our 40-year-olds die. And this just makes me so very angry, because television doesn't tell us this stuff. You know, hey, you're going to be running on the beach and you're going to be doing this, that, and the other. And it's all because of Viagra. Well, how about you go have a good foundational diet so you control your insulin? So this will probably not be marked for kids, safe for kids, because I'm going to say your penis is not going to work.
It's not going to.
Because your insulin's too high. So you've caused the fats to be sclerotic, and they're going to go into the blood vessels and make them harden so they can't expand. And you're going to have cardiovascular disease, and you're going to have to take the little blue pill, because the little blue pill, what does it do? It's supposed to take that sclerosing. It allows vasodilation, or it helps vasodilation. But that only happens for about a decade. And then once you get from the 50s into the 60s and the 70s, so much damage has happened, doesn't come back. How do you fix it? You fix it by camera's reversed. Food first, up here, back here. This is almost funny, but the title, food first.
Oh, that's what you're doing. I'm like,
yeah.
Eat good food. Eat good fats.
I had a very interesting thought while I was pondering this talk. And my thought was, technically, we're all diabetics, because we all have insulin running through our veins pretty much all the time. It's whether or not you have it controlled through your food or not.
Well, and insulin isn't always driven by food. Stress drives insulin up too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so everything is linked. You cannot take one part of health and isolate it. Cardiovascular health is linked to what you eat, because if you're eating sugar and drinking alcohol, your LDL, I'm the case study for that, because in early 2000s up to about 2010, I drank soda and I would put Maker's Mark in it, and I would do this, that, and the other. And where was my cholesterol? When I finally started to measure it, I caught it at the high end at 344. And so it wasn't until I started to incorporate good proteins, organic, pasture-raised proteins, but I had to put them in the proper place. And the thing that is there is the proper place is meat is a condiment. It is not the main course. And we have made it the main course. The Cattlemen's Association has done a fabulous job of making it the main course. It's not. It should be about the size of the palm of your hand. So bigger guys, get a bigger portion. Bigger women, get a bigger portion. Smaller guys, smaller hand, smaller portion. But you don't I don't want people to have to think about their genetics. I don't want people to have to be like, oh, does this have sulforaphane in it? And do I get what I need for methylating? So where do you get sulforaphane? Broccoli sprouts. How about you just, how about you just, you know what? I feel like eating some broccoli sprouts. Or when you're hungry, you go to your refrigerator and you start to literally ask yourself, what do I feel like? And just take a second and listen to your body. Because guess what? You're going to find that today I'm going to gravitate towards the sprouts. Or today I'm going to gravitate towards, I really want some protein. I really want a burger. And I really want some garlic. And I want potatoes today. We eat potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And
sometimes I crave potatoes.
Yeah. And it's okay. Listen to your body, but just prepare it in a good way. And so food is the foundation of all that ails you and all that cures you. It's a circle. It comes back upon itself. And so talking about the insulin and talking about the diabetes and everybody, the thought process or the thought game is that everybody is diabetic, but you want to control that insulin through your diet. If you control your insulin through your diet, guess what? We don't have to take glipizide, berberine, whatever you want to however you want to take it. You can eat it. You can eat it in a lot of different things. And fiber and beans and stuff like that do a great job of controlling sugar and controlling these issues. And so I have blathered on right now for about an hour on this. And it has been pretty much easy because I am very passionate about this. Stay tuned because I'm actually going to set up the camera and we're going to record and put the live up for the broadcast of food prep.
Yeah, we're going to do some food prep for a friend.
So share this video, like it, share it, subscribe. Very self-serving, yes, but we want to build a community that thinks this way, and we want to train the community to think this way. That's one of the tenets. That's the purpose, the drive behind Integrated Health of Indiana is to make the community healthy. We want to bring the community into this fold so we're not dependent on drugs. And we're not dependent on other people for our health. Have control of your own health. I mean, I'm always going to have a job because as a chiropractor, we're always going to screw ourselves up. We're going to be in car accidents. We're going to fall off of ladders. We're going to slip in showers. All of these things are always going to happen. So I'm always going to have a job. I'm not worried about that. I enjoy chiropractic. It's an absolute blast. But we can take care of a lot of the headaches. We can take care of a lot of the pains. And we will heal faster if you have food as a foundation. Good food, whole food.
Think of food, not pharmaceuticals. Look at your biome. We can help you with that.
The biome. If you question your DNA, if you want help on vitamins, that's what we're here to do. We're here to educate and help. And if you're going to spend money on that stuff, make sure you're getting good stuff, because that can be the biggest waste of money and the biggest rabbit hole.
Well, yeah, just look at your biome first, and then you know where you need to focus.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're just throwing stuff at unknowns.
Absolutely. Thank you all. We are 30 seconds away from an hour. We can almost count it down. We love you. We're here for you. Thank you. Share this. Get people interested in it. and we will help this grow and help the community, and we will all just be healthier. Have a great day.
See ya.
Dink.